What is the favorite team on your account? Today and every moment and version that it happens in Genshin Impact. There are more and more characters, and this makes more and more combinations. Today, we are going to watch as an encyclopedia, throughout the video, a video that made me a lot of illusion to do, and that I had long wanted to bring, but I did not fit well into the calendar because there was a lot of many content. Now we're calmer before of the 5.2 and is the best team of every current 5 stars of the game. Not only that, but that apart from the best team, I will tell you 1 or 2 options of that same character, and it's different from a gold team list. But if I let you know that, of course, like the best teams of the game are clear, and today are in this order: Novelet, from Kinish, Moalani's teams, and some raid and hyper carry with Shilonan C2 and some much. So it has surprised a lot with the improvements of NATLAN. Do not surprise to hear several teams repeated, but so I'm going to give you more than one choice with each character, so now I do. Get ready to wear your boots too. I don't know if it's Uriel or Tuma, my editors, who are make this video, but also get ready and put on your boots. I hope it will last little, I hope. The best team of every 5 stars in Genshin Impact. Remember to leave a good like, a subscriber, and you must subscribe, leave a comment for algorithm. Thank you, and you do not cost anything, is totally free. So, just because I'm staring at you, there's thank you so much for comment, and remember that blessing draws are already active, 1 a day, even though I upload 85 billion videos every day. And to participate, you just have to give like, subscribe with the bell, and leave a good comment for algorithm. We start with the team of every 5 stars. Norifical mention to the Traveler, since they are supposed to be 5 stars, but well, the Traveler has the Traveler Electro, the Traveler Inside, the Traveler Geo and such, and are not used much, but good. The Traveler Inside is the best version of the Traveler, and the best team of the Traveler within today. It would be the Hyper Blooms and the Blooms of neither with the Traveler. Now wanted to explain one thing, and is that this video, obviously I took it inspired many that you see content in English. If you see content in, leave me the comments of this video of bars you that is here on screen. So I mentioned it because I saw it a long time ago when he put it up, and I said, Joe, I'd love to make a video, so here it's mentioned because I haven't really seen your video, but I've seen the concept and I wanted it. Do my way. Now we start. Ayaka is a 5 stars, is a cryo carry, and it's best team is Permafrost. I can give you variants, but they will all be Permafrost variants because, although it is true and Ayaka works in reverse melts against enemies who do not move, are very large and can receive all the damage from their own ulti of Ayaka, this is only applicable to 10% of all total enemies. All who are small or big but move will not receive their ultin. So Ayaka Permafrost. The best Permafrost currently in the game is Ayaka Furina Xian and Alt 1 and Sheni, where the next variant would be to switch to Isianyan for Xylon and friends effectively. Here appears already Shilonan is very powerful, and then remember the ancient variants of Ayaka. Kokomi, Kazuha Shene, or Ayaka Mona's hyper-offensive Kazuha Shene next, and I'm going to Rabio. If I'm not gonna imagine you can become the next character is Jean you can play. Mainly in 2 variants of teams who like Jean variant number 1 with Jean C4, playing in both Scaramouche's and Nemo teams instead of Bennett and Xiao's teams. Depending on the C4 are called Sunfire. These Sunfire teams are teams where Jean imbues himself from Pyro next to Bennett, and this provokes us reactions. Reality is not much used this to this day. Jean has played mostly at some point with Novelet until he came out Xianyun, and Jean, like you, I explained in other videos, it does the same or worse than Xianyun, only that also Xianyun enables you to extend it. But 2 better teams of Jean are the Sunfires and the teams of the C4 Mono and Emos. Next, Diluc. The Lord of the Night Diluc could tell you 3 variants of teams his best. Current team is the Diluc Descending, i.e. Diluc Florina Xianyun Bennett, which is in fact a sub-variant of the gaming team. Is very powerful. I recommend you try it, and then separate us. From Furina you put something that will give us cryo to the field. and make melted downs, but you have to very well control the timing so as not to eliminate the enemy breeder and stop melting in the other team that if you will play a lot is a dialogue burn next to Emily that today is the second. The look best team after the downs are Dialogue, Bennett, Fiorina, and Emily and Fiorina Auto. Of the field on the burn, what it does is to make reverse vaporized with what the team is a. Madness a savage, I recommend you try next team the Venti, the Ventolinsori. Very much because Venti to this day is practically not used in the shadow of other anemos but has two variants of very interesting equipment. One could use permafrost where Venti makes the place of Kazuha as long as the enemies can be reunited with Venti and number. 2 Venti also as long as the enemies could come together. That is to say, to this day, less of the sheep. 20% of the chances or even fewer Venti electro-charged equipment are also very powerful. But Venti today is very displaced, and we practically used it in the past for the 9th and 10th floors of the Abyss. But they have already put us in a quality of life in which we can skip the floor 9 and 10 Xiao instead of entering 2 variants of equipment. I will literally enter only on one that are your teams. And this team that are your teams do have variants of the characters. Basically, Xiao is played in Monkey and Nemo benefits very well from Bennett Xianyons. Faruzan and Fiorina and Joan C4, and basically you can combine all these characters in priority. The current best in slot is to play Jean Faruzan Fiorina Bender e.g. No Forgiveness. I have confused Xiao, Faruzan Fiorina Bennett, and you can switch to Xiaoyan for any of these mainly. I would recommend Fiorina if it's not C2, but if it's C2, therefore if it's C2, their Fiorina is amazing. And there are also variants so. Releasing Bennett playing Xianyon Fiorina C2 Faruzan and Xiao Persier Xiao has a team that rotates between various characters as supports that all do very well their work. And that light. Minimum you have to wear a heater that can be Bennett or Xianyon and can be played together, but Xiao's teams don't vary that much. Klee has 2 very powerful teams, but Klee is dependent of its C2. Basically the Klee teams are summarized in Klee Monkey Pyro IE. Taking advantage of General Pyro damage, but this day has been overcome by Alkino, but Klee Monkey Pyro. For those who want to play Klee, who is Klee Kazuha Xianyon Bennett, and they scoot the future Mavuika in it. Time from Xianyon, and then there's a Klee team that's a vaporized reverse Klee, where you play the core of one of the most damage of the tallest years by rotation of the game, where obviously is overtaken by other characters, but is the core of playing Fiorina Kazuha and Bennett alongside Klee, where Fiorina Klee as Kazuha is going to imbue Pyro mix reverse vaporized. And of this there is a Zub variant who is also Diluc's burn team, which is the Klee Emily Fiorina Bennett with it. Fiorina again, making vaporized on the steamed burn inverse this equipment though. Don't use too much the ones Emily has to try it because it's a very strong change. And it's a team. Very powerful next Zhongli. Zhongli would say that it is an exception to say the non-Porjo or Thi. Kiputo like this team very much and play. The milestone square is very good, but beyond Zhongli is like a general defensive contribution for many teams. You might say that for those you have Novilet and it's not Cone, or you don't have the Silonan Kazuha crystallized, but to this day Zhongli would be the stable if just. And then apart from that is a wildcard. More than anything else is an extra card on your account that doesn't have any best in slot as a team, but that does provide all the equipment if you want an extra defensive contribution. Tartaglia Cakes, basically his international team is famous Tartaglia Kazuha. Xiangling Bennett may be enabled some kind of overbait with Ororon IE and Tartaglia. Ororon Xiangling Bennett. And perhaps in the future you can see a roof of Tartaglia Kazuha Mavuika Bennett. Who knows, out of that Tartaglia like Ayato here, I'm going to bring Ayato to the conversation. Because I'm not going to repeat it, because the truth is that today they're literally the same. Can also be played on Hyperbloom's teams. Say Tartaglia in field as Hydro then. 1 or 2 Dendros or some extra Hydro and last a kooky triple mastery to exploit them. Hyperbloom's on your best teams currently next Chi-Chi to see if we want to talk about. Chi-Chi combines more or less well with Fiorina, but there are some electro-charged equipment with Chi-Chi and Din. Field more physical damage as she puts Cryo and electro-charged as the reaction of Electro. Cryo is the super driver then, curiously here. Chi-Chi has a team of super driver more electro-charged where you can play a Chi-Chi. Carry in field built to damage and others with split. And its DPS is therefore to put a Yellen a Fiorina that combines very well with Chi-Chi and Official. an Auroron in the future when it comes out to play this more superconductor electrocharged core. More than here, physical in field plus Jilin that activates the loads of Furina plus double. Bonus harm inflicted on Furina and the friends have just blown your head off. But if this team exists and that here can be made rooms in 30 seconds, it is proposed with the correct equipment. Next, Ganyu would say that his two best teams are the 15th Morgana, i.e. the cute Ganyu. And Rosaria and I say Morgana 15 because if you already want to play here, Furina, Shiyun and others Furina, it has 15 rotation but requires a healer, and Xianyun is 18, with which it is no longer a Morgana. 15 seconds of rotation, which I would say is more frenetic, faster, and more comfortable, more consistent, and more synergistic. The 15 of Rosaria, Kazuha, Mona, Ganyu. And on the other hand, another team the best of Ganyu would also be being Ganyu sub DPS of another more powerful carry in this case of Ayaka or Ryothesly. In fact, the best in slot with rotation of 18 is indeed the Ryothesly. 16 Ganyu sub DPS, 15 Daisyanyon 18, and Furina, and you have the best permafrost team from Ryothesly today. Next character, Albedo before would have two best in slot, that would be Ito's team with Air. Albedo, Ito, Goru, Albedo, and a last character or Stubble Geo, and on the other hand, before it was the second. Best in slot of Navia below Kiori, Gun, and Cone, but if compared, Kiori, Chero, Albedo, Chero 1. Albedo, but today, Xilonen came to snatch this position from him, and the best in slot of Navia. It's Xilonen, and on the Ito teams, if you have Xilonen C2, the best in slot is Xilonen then. In Albedo, we can keep that in his time. He had these equipments no longer, maybe he sends it on someone. Moment to the permanent, who knows, but Albedo today has already lost a lot of potential. But had these two teams, and whoever wants to play Albedo and take him to heaven still has the best in slot of the honorary post of Navia and Ito below Xilonen and Kiori, Cone, and Gun. But there it is. Albedo, India, de Dornazer. Mona would tell you that today, even if you find it curious, her two best teams are the hyper-offensive Permafrost, although there are already better Permafrost that has already explained the day of new today, but we go the Ayaka Mona, Kazuha, Shinhei Mona with Amber, for example, to cure, but the Mona's second best team for the curious, and for the main Mona, is a kind of cute. Vaporized if you have at least the C2 that makes you jump from time to time and extra charge for more. Hydro app, where you can play a Mona playing Tartaglia, i.e. Mona in the field with Wei. Katsuha to Isiangling Bennett, where also Siangling with Mona's Bufo, as it can hit more 100k during those 5 seconds of the additional damage inflicted by Mona to the entire team, and Mona does have enough application if you correctly do the combo of two normals. Jump a load between half dash plus paste the elemental plus when doing the dash and return to. Apply Hydro to enemies' jumps, passive hitting with a second taunt for a few seconds. And if you do it right, Mona, she has enough application for Xiangling to vaporize. It's complicated, but the Mona carry is real, exists, and I'd say it's one of Mona's best teams today. At the feasibility level of the equipment being available is cost-effective and feasible, and perhaps with Mavuika can. Better because Mona 15 Kazuha 15 Mavuika is probably 15 and Bennett 15 that Mona carry with Xiangling. 20 seconds of rotation can surely be converted into 15 seconds of rotation that Chin. That Chin mainly has two teams today that are Keixing Agrave and Keixing Hyper. Carry the Keixing Agrave we will repeat with Chlorine that basically after arrival. Xilonen can already play Keixing Nahida Fisher Xilonen and play a pure Agrate team. That bursts quite a lot. And then the Hyper Carry Keixing is the Hyper Carry Raiden, but with that Chin. That is Keixing Sara Kazuha or Xilonen C2 and Bennett last character where you give all the buffos to the character in field, in this case Keixing, so that Nuke is the Raiden Hyper Carry with its variants but applied to Keixing. Then Hutao would have a team divided into two, which is basically the double Hutao Hydro Xianyun to descending Hutao Furina Yelan Xianyun, where yes, does not have Xianyun here, its best version is Xilonen instead of Xianyun, but if you do not have any of any, these can also fit Bennett last and play double Hutao Hydro Bennett, basically from. So let's say that more than two teams is the same team but with many variants, and if you don't have a Furina then put Xingqiu. And if you don't have Furina on the team and play Xingqiu Yelan Hutao last character, you cannot wear a heater and then put Kazuha. Or for example here would be the next. The Hutao team Kazuha or Kazuha is either complicated because you know that there are the best teams of the manga game in most but many teams. I've already mentioned them with knowledge. I think you know what Kazuha's best team is, or so here I challenge you to leave in the comments which are the three best teams of Kazuha or currently in the game. But I'll tell you two of them. The first is the new billet, which is the best team in the game. Second is Alikino, and both variants could be replaced by Silonen, but mainly the variant that gives us more potential, that is in the case of new billet, is played alongside Silonen in the case of Alikino Kazuha, or is the best in slot, and Silonen is very dependent on its C2 and solo. Similata Hutao, obviously without Xianyun, and no downs, but their best current team is to play me and Mia Fiorina Yellen for the hydro and the double damage inflicted on both of them. And finally, Bennett is their best current team in all cases. Eula, I will give you their best team that you all know. And then, because some is a variant medium troll, but that works and is very strong Eula, you already know that its current best in slot is Eula Raiden Fiorina, to be possible C2 and Mika Sheik 6, which is a dedicated support of the physicist. That is his best team. No more variants before remembering the mains Eula that you see. My videos that I have the free to play that talked about Eula's 4th slot, because his best in slot, it was Mika Raiden Eula, but the last character before Fiorina's arrival could be many. Things could be even Shinhei long ago. Not coming could be Ganyu, could be Smooth, could be Baidu, could be Yunjin for attack speed and make more loads, could here being Ye Miko, could be Yellen, could be a lot of variants, but today Fiorina is the best. In slot of that 4th slot of Eula is his best team currently, and as variant team The best team of Eula half troll, but out of its pure physical variant I could recommend you a kind of hyper bloom equipment, i.e. an Eula with Kuki with Nahida and a Hydro that it could be Yelana without that if you want to be more risky. I can take Fiorina too, but here I would recommend more Yelana without trying it. I will recommend it also, very sorry, with Navia Hyper Bloom. I'll recommend it later, but there's Eula Raiden. Look, with Raiden to be generous and use up to 3 different teams, very easy the Raiden, and per car. And that is Raiden, Zara, Bennett, and last character you can choose between Chevreuse, Silonen, and Kazuha, which is the best of all these. Silonen C2 is the best in slot and is the best in per car, and the game, then Kazuha and more. If you have the chips, that gives Raiden recharge to do more damage, and in 3rd position Chevreuse. Although it is not dependent on its constellations, the 3 are very powerful, and if you do not have all these characters, can directly put Chevreuse and release a Kazuha or a Silonen for another team. Then another Raiden team, the famous Raiden National Raiden Yellen Bar. Without that, if you do not have Xianglin Bennett, that in the future, if a Mavuika comes out here, it will be a Bufo to this team besides Theo. Bufo to the reactions of electric charge overloads this equipment specifically. What is most benefit from that Bufo to the reactions? So National Raiden, that you all know, and as bonus, Raiden's track. There's also an Archon team, in fact, that's playing Raiden, Nahida, Fiorina. You have a Hyperbloom core with the Agrave that allows you to make Nahida when applying Dendro plus the Euphoria flinged, and last on this team you can play both Bennett and Zilonen. To Xiangyun as to Baizu, and any of these 4 characters will complete the core of Team of Archers, and you will have a team of Raiden, also very very powerful. Next, Kokomi. I would recommend you would tell that your best current team, your 2 best teams, are the Blooms together. To Nilu and the Permafrost, previously explained only that above the Permafrost team of Kokomi there. Already like 4 better variants, but Permafrost and Bloom of Nilu, then Ito can explain us many teams, although today next to Silonen C2. If you get Silonen C2 has a very high ceiling. Interesting, with a milestone that is no longer triple Geo if it is not a double Geo milestone, but the reality its best team is the triple Geo with a last character other than Zhongli, and provides us with an extra element. For the crystallized official mainly and apart, or a Kuki, also for the pulses and apart. As this other new milestone team, Silonen C2 Fiorina Bennett, is a core of Navia, but as you have Fiorina Bennett and Silonen C2's Bufo milestone also reaches some moves next to Fiorina's Bufo. And Bennett's attack on Menschels would be the best milestone teams currently. Ye Miko currently its 2 most powerful variants are the Hyper Bloom with inside that overloads the J equipments, promptly overloads the Raiden J Xiangling Chevreuse, or in the future Maoika Chevreuse with Raiden and Jace is a very absurd and powerful team, where Ye does very well. His work, and on the other hand the teams of Hyper Bloom Generals carrying J with 2 Hydros and A inside, or with 2 Dendros and a Hydro in any way possible, and making a combo if you go with U. Furina is not necessary, but if you go alone with Xingqiu Yelan Basic Elemental. Ulti 3 Elemental is a beautiful, elegant combo, very nice, and if you like Ye, surely you've taken him to heaven where Ye has his current maximum potential Yelan. Currently his best team is that of Arlecchino, only that the own best in slot of Arlecchino no. It's with Yelan, and it's with Fiorina, i.e. it's Arlecchino Fiorina, Kazuha Bennett, but if Fiorina you want it free for another team, you have Yelan, where Yelan has the best in slot of the Arlecchino team, who is Arlecchino Yelan Kazuha Bennett or Arlecchino Yelan Shilonen Bennett, and then a second team. To mention, Yelan can also be a substitute for Hydro in Hyper Bloom, or you can play in double Hydro in any variant of Hydro double equipment, both Hyper Bloom and equipment. Ooh. Tao, S teams of me and minus teams, where in general you want to vaporize or apply Hydro. Zoyelana today was very powerful, and still is, but is in the shadow of Fiorina. Poor lot of teams obviously need Fiorina over Yelan because Fiorina is a Yelan with many more steroids than Yelan Shenhe herself is rare, because first is the character who to the present being watching this video has been 1.5 years, not coming since the 3.5 of Sumeru and there. We're almost at the 5.2 of Natlan for 1.5 years without coming his best in slot is Permafrost already. You know it, the Permafrost that I mentioned before, Aya, that is also the best in slot there, ICA Fiorina. Xianyun Shen and all the sub-variants with a lot of character changes, but here comes the great disclaimer, but Shenhe can also play on some melt teams. Pure in verses of Bennett Xiangling Shenhe, and a carry Cryo here, whomever you want it to be. Riotisly can be Xiangyun, can be Rosaria, and your rotating between the two can be a lot of Fuchas in Natlan. I don't know concretely, so Shenhe, let's say he could stay here at the Permafrost or some Monocryos, since now you cannot much freeze and have not played, but Shenhe's Monocryos, there's Aki Egan, you sub DPS Kazu, hyper offensive can be played, and has a damage very high, only that are not really comfortable, Ayato. The same as Tartaglia Tignari. It mainly only has the Hyper Bloom core, and at the time it was played to sprees, but today Hyper Bloom core is just one, and is the one I would recommend, that is Tignari Fiorina Najida Kuki, which is the same as Al Hytham and the same one you can play with Kinnish if you want to play Kinnish Hyperloom. Is incredible that team for Tignari, and then already a second team as you can play in Bloom. Because it applies inside and you can play in Agra and sprees, i.e. making some team where you don't. There's the Hydro, and you just play because Electros Tignari and maybe a Shenli or something like that, but for play that directly, I recommend playing Hyperloom, which is an equal team with the same reaction, and plus the Hyperloom that is much more damage, neither the Bloom equipment, only Bloom equipment, nor it is for Bloom. I'd like to give a second option, but it's not even a very closed character to play Bloom. But it is also closed, I will give you a second option, but if it is not carry Electro of Hyperloom with I. Which, if not Fiorina Nagida and last Baiju is Subestina slot, but you can also play Silonen as the second alternative under Baiju, and then you can try to force it so not playing some Overload with Chevreuse, some pure Agrave equipment without Hyperloom, but you. The same thing happens as to the rest of the carries, all the Electro and inside carries that can be played in it. Cores of Hyperloom if you remove the Hydro, and you want to play only then Agrave or Spreed, which is the reaction of inside and Electro because you lose a lot of damage, but in the end it is Hyperloom, and it is also of a team as can be denoted Nahida, because well Nahida we could say that the Hyperloom's in general, there are 80,000 variants of Hyperloom whenever it combines that Nahida with a triple Electro mastery, and with some Hydros you have all the best Nahida teams among them. I will mention 2 points that would be the Novelette Fiorina Nahida Kuki, try them, I recommend. An abysmal damage, and for the best Hyperlooms of the game, plus and apart the Nahida Xingqiu Yelan Kuki triple mastery that would be Hyperloom uni-target with a lot of Hydro damage against a enemy, where you can put either of the two Xingqiu Yelan Hydros into a Fiorin to increase more the damage, but as the harm inflicted by Fiorina does not affect the seeds, also does not change so much, but you can try it anyway. We're still running out of time. We're just finishing up and leaving me the comments. Which is the team you wish I'd mentioned in your favorite character and not it? I have mentioned, or those that reach the end, that there is still a little bit left, which is the team that has. Missing on one of the lists, or the one you would like to include for some of the characters? Wonder Scaramouche today is from a team, but Scaramouche if you learn to play it correctly. You can play many variants of teams. The Scaramouche best in slot today is Scaramouche, Faruzan, Furina, CT2 and Bennett, and this team is very fragile because you know them as Scaramouche that yes, you don't have a resistance to interruption as soon as you literally blow Scaramouche off. Interrupts and loses a lot of damage, stays 2 static seconds without hitting and you lose. A lot even from the bar because to get back in control and be able to hit you're going to spam the dash button, and when inserting a dash loses enough of the bar, but who has very good hands is Scaramouche's best team, and if you want a little more of his defensive style, we switch to Furina. For Zhongli we lose a lot of damage, we gain defensive stability, and we have the Scaramouche. Faruzan, Zhongli, Bennett more variants as the Wonder can be played in Electrocharged and can be played in Permafrost, so you can play even in National if you want a wonderful Yell and Xiangling. Bennett prove it, but really, his star team of God, I've told you to the one who did it herself. Story that Tignari best in slot Hyperbloom. The same core that I explained to you with Tignari, and then you can play pure sprites that many have played since Alhaitham Nahida Jaya's Zhongli or combinations like this, but you lose a lot of character potential if you waste the reaction of Hyperbloom from day to day. I would recommend 2 main teams that are the Mono Pyro Day that you all know that as you see it we've also mentioned with Click and Accept some 9. Characters for the stands would be Day Kazuha Xiangling Bennett, and today you can switch to Bennett for Jilonen to Kazuha for Shilonen, or maybe Xiangling for Mavuika in the future. We don't know this. Still so well, we'll see it. Maybe Mavuika is a carry, is a Day Promax as you, I'd say, and we've got the Mono Pyro by Day, and on the other hand, we've got a weird over vape that you can. How could Jean be to make Sunfire and apply us also healing? Or could be Kazuha to imbue Pyro where Novelet can vaporize on burn 1 in 3 hits equipment that it's not used at all, but it's very interesting, and a 3rd day team would be combinations of a double cracking reaction plus Hyperbloom means a Dendro Nahida, a carry Dendro like Thay, then Hyzana Hydro to apply Xingqiu, Yellen, Furina, whatever you want, and then last, combined with a Hydro Detrian to leave already Kooky to let me explode the crackling. But with those 2.5 seconds, he's cooled down from his elementary and Kooky's punches. Explodes the Pebble much faster than I left to with the pulses who have every 1.5 seconds. That are faster Baiju has today. 2 main teams, the core of the carry. Electro with Furina, Nahida and Baiju, the one that I have explained to you before, Raiden of Fate, and that would be a Chlorint core, and then you can also play in Bloom for Bloom is a defensive contribution. Very good, because in the end it adds damage to the reactions of Bloom and everything else liney here. We already started with characters who are going to repeat Roaster. Liney is going to repeat Roaster to the Monopyros. Clays and DGs is all i.e. Liney and Xiangling Vind Kazuha can play Shillong in Vened and Kazuha and Mavuika instead of Xiaoin in the future, and be the core of Arlecchino, which is the Ka Furina Katsuha Vened's core. In fact, that's actually our best in slot, and whoever likes it. A lot of Linian have very fast hands, know how to make the right combo to start with a load, then finalize, and then elemental to explode the hats and all the charges and make one last very big damage. Liney has here a spectacular nuke that can go down bosses and a very high damage. Riodosley's best team is the Permafrost, but also currently with NATLANs are working and testing inverse melted twins, but basically Frost, Perma, Riodosley, Furina. Xianyon and Askanyu sub DPS don't play here Shenhe, because Shenhe enables you 20 seconds of cooldown and it delays you very much the general damage of the equipment, although it is a sub-variant inferior to Lead Ganyu as sub-DPS on the Riodosley team, and on the other hand the melted Riodosley. In versus that would be Riodosley, Emily Xiangling and Vind, where obviously Xiangling and Emily. Generata continuous burn Mavuika surely better this equipment because Ryo Desli 16 v 15. Emily has Archon cooldowns that can adapt rotations up to 13 seconds, but Xiangling is 20 if here comes Mavuika with 15 would enable us a Veen Mavuika Emily Ryotsli without 16-second rotation and would greatly improve the team is Ryotsli's second best team. Neuvillet. Oh my god, this character Neuvillet has many teams, first team Neuvillet alone. I'm just against everyone. That's Neuvillet's best team. Neuvillet alone. Neuvillet alone. That was one of Neuvillet's best teams then. Neuvillet, Fiorina, Kazuhash. And they made the best game team in Impact, so you already imagine at what level we are, gentlemen. And then already starting. From here you can play a lot of combinations. You can play Neuvillet Electro Charged, you can play Neuvillet Hyperbloom, which I explained to you before, Neuvillet Furina Nahida Cookie. You can play endless things. The reality is that Neuvillet works alone, so there's not much more. Talk about Neuvillet Furina. Furina is on the list of the 3 best teams in the game. And in fact, in the 2 NATLAN cars that are fighting for the posts, let's say 4, 5, and 6, and still. It is not clear because they still depend on the departure of Mavuika that they are Kinish, and Molani is also. Best in slot Furina is the best character in the game, best team. In the game where Furina is. Neuvillet second best team of the game. Where's Furina Alekino third best team of the game? Where Furina Gaming and variants can compete for the following top positions. Hyper Bloom game teams where you can be perfectly Fiorina Kinish, where currently the variant of Kinish Furina Xiangling Bennett, and in the future Mavuika instead of Xiangling is his best. In slot and Molani, where your current best in slot is Molani Furina, in heating Silognan mode, and heating Xiangling in the future, Mavuika instead of Xiangling. Ladies and gentlemen, Furina is indisputable. Navia would be the Navia Hyperbloom. I told you that I was going to tell you the Navia Hyperbloom. And it is the variant of the Eula Hyperbloom equipment, i.e. Navia, a Hydro, a Dendro, which can be Nahida or Melee and Cookie Triple Mastery, but of course mains Navia, the best in slot of Navia, and leave me. The comments, which is your maximum year with a gun of Navia, have reached 1 million. Kiori-kun with Xianyun. Weapon? Your team say core, where it is best in slot indisputable. Is the gaming team, i.e. Gaming Furina, Xianyun Bennett, and then any variant that? Out of control to Descenders, who will always make it worse than gaming, but will have a team spectacularly strong as it can be Dialuk by day or up to Xinyan that is imbued with Pyro. Bennett's Chi-Sigs and then Xianyun herself also has a good team with Alekino, which is the Alekino Furina Yelan Xianyun, which is like Hutao variant but normal attacks because Xianyun Loya, Dragon Hunter Alekino, and also variants you can play New Billet. That were the same teams that played Neuvillet before, but with Xianyun of Fort Healer instead of Jin when you played with Jin. Then, apart from this, Xianyun is the best in slot. Of the Permafrost only that cannot be played, it is best in slot by Ryothsley, although Ryothsley is not so high, and other than all that, if you don't want to play down in the end, she's a very good healer. The best error Nemo that will give us green shade to the team, and will give us a hunter of fun. Dragons, apart from a lot of energy with which Xianyun you already know is very powerful as team. This right here, and we're done here. There's nothing Kiori would say to you that I eat with albedo, more or less. Shilonena has displaced. Both would simply be the same equipment and examples of the triple Geos and Thi. Double Geo with Navia, and with Ito overcoming albedo. Only if Kiori is tone and gun, but below Shilonen. Cheron, I don't even tell you about Shilonen C2 anymore, but Kiori in the end is that best in slot of Navia above. Albedo below is not best in slot, is second best in slot below Shilonen, Cone, and Weapon and Ending. Triple Geo, the same above Albedo, if it is Cone and Gun, and below Shilonen in the case of the triple team Geo, if it's Kylonen C2 Iteo. Sigewin deleted it from the game, goodbye. I'm not going to do Shilonen teams to see Sigewin with C2 low resistance to Sidro, with which Sigewin, C2 could be played with Sigewin C2, Kazuha Furina Neuvillet, but today with Shilonen Chero, and Katsuha Chero already do better work with which to make a Sigewin C2 to play with Neuvillet. I don't know, but Sigewin C2 has a very good team with Neuvillet. Alekino? Well, Alekino has many variants of teams can be played in the famous Monopyro that I have commented before. You can play in Furina, Yellen, and play double Hydro is not descending his normal attacks. But you benefit from the Green Shadow, you benefit from healing, and you benefit from the Dragon Hunter of Xianyun, and was part of all this his best current team with many variants, but his main core that is always respected is Furina, Kazuha, and Bennett, and here you can put Silonen instead of Kazuha, or instead of Bennett at some point, and you can get Yellen or Shinkyu into. Furina's obviously being inferior, and then like some weird funny team or surprise of the Alekino itself could play the Crepitar more burn that I mentioned to you before than not. A lot of people have managed to prove it because you don't have Emily because she came out just in a moment before Delicate NATLAN for free to play, but I recommended Alekino Furina Emily Bennett. Highly recommended to test this more burn cracking equipment that enables Emily with L. Carry Pyro in general, where Furina evaporates on the burn off the field, is a savage of the Chlorind 2 variants. The Chlorind Hyper Bloom Double Arconte with Baiju were first E, the Chlorinde Nahida Furina Baiju, and the Chlorinda Gravit. Explain with Quichin that it is the Chlorine Nahida. Fischl and Shilonen are their two best teams, although Chlorind with certain difficulties can more or less take advantage of the hyper carry by Sarah Chixilonen, C2 or Kazuha, or Bruce and Bennett Emily. To see what a coincidence, I have mentioned to you many teams of Emily, but not the not. Emily's best team has a team to start from with any carrier who is the burn more crackling than I've told you, or even removing any Cariper playing that same variant of Emily Bennett Furina Xiangling. And here the improvement of that Mavuka, instead of 20 cooldown seconds as Xiangling has 15 with which he plays an Emily 15 rotation team. Bennett where you play burn more crackle with abysmal damage and Furina making it Xiangling vaporating outside the field, but apart, Emily has best in slot with Kinnish, you already know, Kinnish Emily. Xiangling Ba Bennett next, and we finish Kinnish currently his two best good teams. 3, but in this order that I will tell you, are the Kinnish Furina, Xiangling Bar Bennett, which is the Kinnish team's most crackling burn is a save with Cone, then the Kinnish burn Emilia, Xiangling Bar Bennett, and finally Kinnish if you manage to build it without weapon, and Cone makes superior performance to Mia Tignari Giza in Hyper Blom equipment, with which little joke, because the Kinnish Nahida Furina Kuki, I repeat, only improves the Giza Mia Tignari if you have a It's spectacularly powerful. I've explained the Korea to you. Before talking about Furina and Chilonen, that would be Moalani pure vaporized with Xiangling Ba, Mavuika, Chilonen and Furina healer, and then you can also play Moalani in a subvariant of Darien. Vaporizon burn with Moalani Nahida, or Emily Xiangling, and last also Xilonen. To put the buffos to Moalani Chilonen, the Novelette team, the best team of the game, ladies and Chilonen gentlemen, neither nor is it broken that it is not broken, says it is best in slot of the best team of the game and is first second best in slot of the rest of the top 10 teams of the game, both with Yeo, as without Yeo, but yes, the best team of Chilonen would tell us that it is Novelette, and the second better team would be a subvariant of Alekino, who is the second best team in the game than Dame. It would be Alekino Furina Chilonen Bennett instead of Kazuha, basically. That you have infinite combinations of Milestone Navia and C2 Permafrost that can be played instead of Cyanyun, instead of the Hila, the second best variant of the Hu Tao teams, and well along etc. Chaska Asi, since it doesn't exist yet, I don't know, but since I'm the ugly Chaska Auroron Furina Bennett, and some Chaska Elemental Monkey, 3 Cryos, or Chaska Furina, and 2 Cryos, or Chaska, and 3 Pyros, 4. Fit full Pyro, but mainly the Chaska Overload more vaporized, which is called Super Vaporized, and there are all the 5 stars best team of Mavuika. Fill Terra 4 to see the best teams of Mavuika. It is possible that they are Mordani and Kinnish, very possibly. And then we'll see if the National Raiden Buffers making a National Raiden of Raiden Yelan, Mavuika Bennett, but basically both Kinnish and Moadani and all the old teams that they will somehow bring to a Xianglin summary of the best teams of Mavuika. A little more, I hope. Well, it's not that long. It's not an hour. It's 40 minutes. Good, all you better subscribe, you leave a good comment so that I leave to enjoy and see the video, the channel. I hope you enjoyed very much recommending this video and sharing it to your friends who ask you about the best team of their favorite Chinese Mona. So that in this video, you can see which is the best team of each of the 5 stars of Genshin Impact, and I hope that it was really worth enjoying all this time. Thanks for keeping the whole the work of the channel team. And if you are eating, take great care to have a very good day. Remember the like, subscribe with bell and comment for the algorithm, to participate by the bendy to support the channel that is not forgotten, and that you are very well. Bye bye.